Okay, now this illuminated manuscript we're going to look at is one of my favorites, and it blows my mind because of the visual relationship with reality and kind of a religious vision. Oh, what are we talking about, Miss Cortez? This is an illuminated manuscript by the Master of Mary of Burgundy. Don't worry, I'll tell you why it's called that. And the artwork is Mary of Burgundy at Prayer, which is the page we're looking at. In the larger book of Hours for Mary of Burgundy. Whoa, 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 Miss Cortez, I don't understand this title. I get it. Okay. The artist, we're not quite sure who made this. So, we, as historians, often will associate a unknown artist with several artworks and then just say, oh, it's the master of that artwork. And then, like, it looks like that too, it looks like that too. So, the name, because we're not sure who it is, the name or the artist is simply called the Master of Mary of Burgundy because this artwork is a masterpiece. This artwork is called the Book of Hours for Mary of Burgundy. So the artist, whoever it was, they mastered it, and this is a masterpiece. A side note, some art historians think they know who made this. The artist being Alexander Benning, but I didn't put it up here because it's more typically just generic Master of the Mary of Burgundy Book of Hours. Got it? So these two pages here, these two pages are called the Folio of Mary of Burgundy at Prayer, and then the book is the Book of Hours for Mary. Who's Mary? What is going on? Oh, Mary. She, Mary of Burgundy, is the last Duchess of Burgundy. Say what? Okay, I know. I like to give you a little context just to kind of help solidify what is going on in the world and why we're seeing in the artworks. Mary of Burgundy, this is another portrait of her. She was the great granddaughter of Philip the Bold, and she was the Duchess of Burgundy by birth. And she was like one of the most sought after eligible bachelorettes in Europe. And everybody was vying for her hand in marriage because if they married Mary of Burgundy, they got the Duchy of Burgundy, which we know, money, money, money. So all of her life as the Duchess of Burgundy, she had to fight for control over her territory, especially against her relatives, the King of France. King of France really wanted it, and so she kind of like pulls a fast one on him by marrying his enemy, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Maximilian. And so it was like a big chaotic thing. The King of France was like, she just married my enemy. And Maximilian, the Holy Roman Emperor, was just like, hey, Mary, what's up? And he absorbs the Duchy of Burgundy. I know, the drama. Anyways, I wanted to give you a little bit of context because Mary is a very strong figure and she knows her power, she knows her worth, and this is her private Book of Hours. And so what we're seeing here on the right page is a prayer, and look at the amazing and elaborate illumination. All that you see that's kind of this dark brown, that's silver. And then we have the gold. So the silver is tarnished now, but it is extremely expensive and elaborate. And of course, this is only appropriate for Duchess of Burgundy, Mary. And then on the other side, here, the other side, we see Mary, and she is sitting, reading this Book of Hours. This is the exact same size it would have been in her hands. So it's like time travel. We're looking at the book that she's actually looking at in this folio. So we're going to look at the details of that panel. Okay. So we have Mary, and she is wearing the latest in haute couture, high fashion that would have been appropriate for the Duchess of Burgundy. She has this gorgeous chocolate brown silk taffeta fabric of the skirt. She's got this gold brocade on her bust, and then here we have this soft fur collar, and then look at this elaborate cone-shaped hat. You've probably seen, medieval Halloween costumes with this type of hat. This was a type of cone hat called a hennin, Hennin, and it was very popular, especially in the Duchy of Burgundy. And it would be a structure lined in a very expensive fabric, because remember, fabric, textiles, that's very hard to come by, very expensive. And so she's got this brocade fabric that is, if you think about it, it's just for decoration. It's just not functional. It's just wasted money because it's extravagance, right? So she's got this very expensive fabric that's tiled on top, and then coming out of that, you see this very thin, transparent veil. Again, a very delicate, very expensive textile, and here it is kind of falling down, and it's supposed to emphasize the soft features of her face, right? So we see her at her book of prayer, and in her lap is her little dog, and then across this ledge we see her prayer beads, her rosary beads, and they're not just any, they're like big nuggets of pearls and rubies. And then over here we see these beautiful purple lilies in this tall glass vase. What we're looking at is not only the wealth and extravagance of Mary of Burgundy, but we're also looking at the technical skill of the artist. Because think about it, you try to make something transparent in a painting like this veil, or what about this glass here? We immediately understood that as a clear glass vase holding these stems of lilies, but honestly, could you make something clear that holds something on a two-dimensional surface? So the master of the Book of Hours is showing their mastery of these very difficult optical situations. I want to pull your attention to, here's that detail I was looking for. But I want to pull your attention to specifically the window she sits in front of. So she's sitting in front of this archway, and there are hinges here, and the glass window has been pulled open. And don't worry, we're going to talk about what is going on inside beyond the window, but this type of window is called crown glass. And you might be familiar with it, you might see it in other older buildings. Crown glass is a type of method in which the clear glass would be blown into a blob and then pressed and spinned, and so the centrifugal force would flatten out or splay out the glass into these small circles that would then be broken off from the beholder and then placed with lead into the window. This diagram here, it's very pixelated, but it does give you a sense of how these types of glasses were made. So there's your glass furnace, and there we have the rod and the blob of glass, and then you see this guy spinning it out really big. So this is a technical skill of a glassmaker, and this would have been extremely expensive in terms of raw materials. And of course, we see this expensive glass being part of the everyday window of the Duchess of Burgundy. So she stands or sits with her lap dog, and she's in front of a window that's been open. The window reveals Mary, the Virgin Mary, with baby Jesus, and they are in this elaborate Gothic space, perhaps a church or simply a chapel, and then they are paying attention to or receiving Mary Burgundy. Mary of Burgundy is in this scene, there she is. She's straight up wearing the same collar, same hennin, and here she is kneeling down, her ladies in waiting, so her entourage behind her, and she is in the presence, they are acknowledging her, of the Holy Virgin and baby Jesus. The reason I love this manuscript so much is because think about the kind of mind bend that you're having here. You're holding the Book of Hours that you see Mary holding. Let's pretend you're Mary. You're Mary, Duchess of Burgundy. You're holding the Book of Hours that you're holding in this illumination. And as she's reading these personal prayers, proving her devotion, her devout character, through this window is a vision of her in the presence of the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus, without any need of a priest, without any need of other authorities beyond herself. So there's this bend of reality between the physical book and the book pictured there, and then there's also this bridge between Mary and Mary. She's not saying that she is like, the next coming of Christ, or she is saintly, but that she has this immediate connection and understanding, this God-given right to be Duchess of Burgundy, this rule, this leadership for the rest of her duchy as the Duchy of Burgundy. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? So then again, let's circle it back. How is this proto-Renaissance? Well, we see lots of Gothic elements. We have this Gothic architecture. We have ribbed groin vaults, pointed arches. There's this emphasis of height and the light coming through the windows. Those are all characteristic of Gothic architecture. However, the pool of space where we see Mary, the Virgin Mary, and Jesus behind this ledge, there's this extra dimension, right? So we see depth. That's something that we start to see in the Proto-Renaissance period. Also look at the attention to highlights and midtones and shadows. It's not quite right. The light comes into the Gothic space, and we have the bright on this side, and then there's like a different or disjointed light and shadow for Mary in the front. So it's not quite convincing, but there's an attempt to. There is an attempt to model highlights, midtones, and shadows of chiaroscuro in the drapery, the folds. So this again, we could consider almost Renaissance, proto-Renaissance.